Everyone, welcome back to Zesty's Best Bets. This is your Week 8 special here, coming off a rough week for the top five, going 0-5 on both the anonymous betting public and Zesty's Best Bets side. However, if you pay close enough attention and followed the bonus bets, you probably made some cash last week, going 10-2 for the Big Zest. So we're back for another week of NFL and college football action, and maybe because the public is into this type of thing, some light discussion of boxing. And we will kick it off here to go into week 8 of the NFL. Our first bet of the week is the Rams and the Cowboys. This is on the total. We are on, or Zesty is on, the under at 45.5, which it currently sits. Zesty, take it away.
Yeah, so I actually like the side as well. I settled on the total because I think both offenses have the potential to struggle. Still can get to put money on Dick Dak. Even though he's 2-0 against Stafford, I think this is just a good buy spot. The Rams came back from playing Pittsburgh, struggled a little bit, but teams kind of do struggle against Pittsburgh. I think it's just too much points. I don't see the Cowboys side of things making up the difference of the total. I only see the defense coming off of a bye shitting the bed enough to allow the Rams to overexceed their point total. As I mentioned, I don't have it on our sheets, but I actually like the 6.5. I think it's just a tough matchup overall for the Cowboys. I know they seem to be on my card every week. It's not because I fucking can't stand them. They just happen to have inflated lines consistently. So that's how I lay out with that game.
Yeah, you make some good points. I'm on the other side of the points here. I'm laying the 6.5 with Dallas, and that's largely a reflection of them coming off the bye and the Rams just looking totally disappointing. So this is a true public overreaction where the Rams fucked me last week, and now I'm going to try and get revenge on them by betting against them. So that typically does not work out. So the plus 6.5 and the under, probably a good place to be. That being said, if I wanted to offer some counterpoints here to justify my own bet beyond my own irrationality, that would be the bye week, of course, helping Dallas out, get a little healthy, get your shit together. Also, you have hopefully McCarthy coming in, really coming into his own as a play caller. Hopefully that's what we see coming out of this. And then as they can continue to get some good matchups for CD and funnel that offense through Tony Pollard, then the Dallas offense can get going just enough. And I like Dallas's defense coming off a bye. Dan Quinn being able to scheme against the Rams, which are, I think outperforming expectations on offense, especially since they did not have Cup for the first part of the year. But they're still, if they can make them one-dimensional and give that Dallas pass rush a chance, then Matt Stafford is prone to do Matt Stafford things. And that is what we are counting here. Dallas's defense either putting up some points on its own, which could fuck you in the total, or creating some short fields for the Dallas offense, which is probably going to be what they need to cover. So next up, we skip over to the land of cheese, and let's talk about the Packers under 42.5. They're against the Vikings, and the total is, under 42, which is where it sits now. Tell us why the cheese is too thick to score through.
Yeah, I'd have to monitor the injury list. Hopefully, Alexander plays that kind of, which is their cornerback. That's
Jair Alexander, right?
correct. Above replacement, I don't have his numbers, but he's quite a bit of a important role for the defense there. But disclaimer before we get started. So we all have all these bets. It doesn't necessarily mean they're all on our tickets. These are games we communicate that have value. So don't go out there guns a-blazing. Bet responsibly if you choose to do so. To follow up with the Packers, this is not on my ticket yet, kind of pending here, but the more I've looked into it, I've kind of leaned to the side that the Packers are, Minnesota is less than valued here. Some of the models show they should be up to a 3-point favorite, 1.5, but historically between these two teams, I don't care who plays, who doesn't play. I think the last 20 have gone, it's like 17-2 to the under, 17-0-2. So naturally, we're probably going to have a barn burner here. But there's a lot of data that show these two teams, they play each other pretty tough. Division game, rivalry. So that's kind of where I don't see Green Bay, Jordan Love getting his love on. And Minnesota did something nobody expected. So I think there's going to be a little public action and love after watching them beat the Niners. But short week, division game, love the unders.
Nice. Yeah, I tend to agree on the point total. Always like a divisional under, especially in a big time rivalry, and questionable quarterback play can lead to some good things there, and we got that on all sides. So Cousins on the road, Jordan Love still questionable. I'm on the Vikings, laying 1.5 is when I had it, but I have yet to put it on the ticket, so that'll be revised down, provided it holds at a point right now, which is where it is. I do think that the Vikings are the better team here. It is slightly concerning to me that Minnesota did beat the 49ers last week, and you would think that there'd be some overreaction from people of my ilk in the anonymous betting public, and that still has not caused any dramatic line movement. I haven't seen the money totals, but that leads me to believe that the bookmakers are at least thinking that Green Bay is able to play its best game at home, which if they're able to run the ball against Minnesota and create some easy opportunities for Jordan Love, then maybe I got a problem here on the Minnesota Vikings. But right now, I just think Minnesota's playing better football. I do think Brian Flores is going to continue to make that defense a better and better unit over time because he's a good enough coach to do that. And Minnesota has Jordan Addison still, which is not Justin Jefferson, but is also looking like a very real option as a number one receiver. So they've got some threatening people on their offense. Hawkinson, I think, is Hawkinson still a Viking?
Yes.
Yes. He just hurt. So we'll watch that out for the beginning of the game. If he ends up sitting, then, might be definitely lends itself to the under, but certainly not to the Vikings laying the points. So we'll keep an eye out on the injury report ahead of game time and see what happens in the land of Wisconsin. Hopefully there's enough Swiss cheese being made by the Packers that the Vikings can score.
Yeah, and nice little tidbit about Jordan Addison because somebody may have recently acquired him. Might try to speak that into him doing well.
No bias, except for all the bias. That is true. He is now a member of the squad. Speaking of the squad, how about a fast-paced, incredibly well-moving machine down in Miami with a point total at 47, going up against what appeared to be the hapless New England Patriots until they found a way to beat the Bills. And they're down in Miami, and the total is at 47. And you are on the under, sir. A very contrarian Dolphins under. Explain yourself.
Yeah, I love boring football games, apparently. What is it, 4 weeks ago, 5 weeks ago? Before we thought the Patriots were shit, they kind of broke the mold. I know they were at home, but they were the first to somewhat contain Miami. Miami is starting to show some cracks, whether it's up in your face, get two off a spot, which that's kind of the code to any quarterback here, but they're starting to show deficiencies in this explosive offense that is so fun, run and gun, that Bill Belichick historically, I don't want to say sucked in Miami, but that's kind of his house of horrors down there in Miami. So coming off a big win with Buffalo, I'm still very unsure how good Buffalo is. I continue to watch them, and I don't get it. They either look like gangbusters or the worst team in the league. So we were on Philly last week, kind of played to the script that we'd mentioned. They're going to push the pocket, they're going to bully them, they're going to run the ball. Eventually, the Patriots are going to learn that running the ball for them is their best bet instead of letting McCorkle there fucking throw the ball around too many times. But their only shot to play within it is not point for point, so that's why I'm on the total. I don't love it too much, but again, divisional game, both coming off losses. They're going to try to play their kinks out. Patriots have more kinks, but Miami has been the darling in the last 3 weeks. I guess they had the Panthers, but anybody that they've actually stepped up, and I don't know if I would call the Patriots a step up, but anybody that has, multiple NFL players, they're not looking like a high school team versus a JV team. So that's why I got the total.
Nice. Well, I like the total for slightly different reasons. I'm on the Dolphins, laying the big number at 9.5. I see New England as another really below average team, which has been fodder for the Dolphins this season, especially at home. Their defense is getting a little healthier, so I'd be surprised if New England put up more than 14 points. And I think Miami can do enough on offense to hit the line and, maybe even push towards that total number, but more importantly, to cover the 10 that they need to. So counterpoint to your total is if Miami's defense does just kind of give it no shits on the day and allows New England to actually look like an NFL offense, which they haven't much except for the game against the Bills. But unlike you, the Bills are woefully under impressive. And I don't understand how sometimes they look like they can march down the field with zero incompletions and running the ball on first and second and getting first downs, no third down plays. And then you turn around and the next three drives, they're back to back to back punts. So they're just a bit of an enigma. Leads me to believe they're a little bit average as well. And Belichick had a hard on for him, I think, last week because he's been getting his ass kicked by the Bills recently. So that may be the case here in Miami, but I do think there's some truth to guys being up in New England. It's cold as shit, and then having to go down to Miami where it's a little bit better weather, trying to catch your breath. And New England's defense is down Judon, which they had in their first matchup. I think that's a big help for them against a team like Miami. So without him, I like the Dolphins here, and I think the total is probably safe because you do have New England who's going to struggle to score. So unless the Dolphins decide to just put up 70 again, I think you're well on your way to victory there. So now we stay. We stay with Florida teams, but we are going to travel up to Pittsburgh, where the Jiggity Jags take on the Pittsburgh Steelers, and we are on the total here with the Jags and the Steelers under 41, and that is where it currently sits. Nobody's scoring points in Pittsburgh this week, huh?
Yeah, there's a constant. Pittsburgh wins off the bye and a dog. That's just what they do. I know this is last week's game. Pittsburgh's offense isn't great. They continue to struggle. Jacksonville's defense is decent, but I'm not sure their offense is that great either. So, yeah, I just think it's a spot of seems like an ugly line. Two relatively ugly teams. Just no points. It's going to be a really boring, disgusting game if you want to enjoy that. I don't have too
right
many.
Up your alley.
Yeah. Not too many statistics to back it. I'm not looking at my notes, but this is a pretty good opportunity off a bye. Obviously, that was 2 weeks ago for Pittsburgh, but coming home, I think right now, looking at the public, they're the different public, not our own public.
Not me.
They're loving sunshine in Pittsburgh.
But also me. That's me.
The NFL's different. They're slowly trending the opposite way, but 41 isn't that high of a number. Gets people to buy. If you look at last week, I think there was 4 or 5 games under 40 that covered the under. So either get to the number early or it doesn't get there. They ended up, choking the game out, playing possessions, looking for a field goal. I see this game playing close to the vest, playing field position. I think both of them take care of the ball good enough that I don't think a short field is going to hamper that. And I think it's going to be 8 to 12 play drives, touchdown, field goal. I don't see a lot of explosive plays in this game.
No, that's fair. I stayed away from the total here just because 41 looks a little low, even with the Pittsburgh offense being a little bit unpredictable. I'm on the Jags at -2.5. This falls squarely into my category of when the line is less than 3 and the teams are relatively even, go with the quarterback that you like. So I like Sunshine. I think it's probably a tight game moving into the fourth quarter. Sunshine happens to be a guy where if they can remain semi balanced on offense, I think he can be the one to, carve through that Pittsburgh defense at the end of the game. If they have to come back for more than 2 scores at any point, this is obviously going to look really tough because anybody who has to do that against Pittsburgh's D has really struggled. Just after the Rams when they got down last week against them. TJ Watt and his friends like to make things really difficult for you. So I'm hoping that ETN can help keep the balance there for Jacksonville and field goal to win it at some point, but that's what we're looking for. And I share your concern about the points. I just don't know that either one of the offenses gets it going completely in the game. And since the Steelers are at home, even though I think the Jags are a little bit better, they're likely to play well enough to keep the total under. So that'll be an exciting barn burner in Three Rivers.
Yeah, basically on both sides. It's anywhere from, obviously we only get the numbers that they want us to know, but both sides it's about 60, 65 to 40, 35 for Jacksonville versus the number and the over. The over is dropped from 41. I guess there's still some 41s out there, but I'm seeing a lot of 40s, 40 and a halves. So
nice. Yeah, for the record, when we're saying where the line or the total is right now, I'm looking at my bookie, the Netherlands-based online bookmaker. So we're not going with Caesars or MGM. If you can shop around for the best lines because you live in a state that allows you to do so, we always recommend that because if you can get a point or a half point here and there, as we all fucking know, that can be the difference between you collecting money and you sitting at home sad like we did last weekend.
Yeah, the hook was designed for me. I seem to always be on the other side of a fucking hook. And it's not fun, so get the best number.
Absolutely. Speaking of the best number, how about the winner last week of the Officer Rabbit versus Officer Farva matchup? Old Tyson Bagent as Officer Rabbit took the gates and took the keys and ran with them. Absolutely car ramrodded Officer Farva and the Raiders squad up there and just beat that ass. And you have them, those funny looking bears, on their way to the home of Los Angeles at +8.5 against our friends of the pod, because they like to shit the bed so much, the Los Angeles Chargers.
You're not going to believe this. Maybe you will. I don't know. The Chicago Bears and the Bengals, but we haven't got to that yet, are the number one most public bet this week. So either
Bears?
Yes. So either they have lost absolute faith in Justin Fields or the people of Chicago are just rooting for anything, and everybody knows the Chargers can't win the game at all, so they're taking the 8.5 because they always seem to play close. I'm also on that. Everybody's believing in Bagent. Chicago is turning things around. They seem to get a relatively consistent running game. They don't look as inept as they did early in the year. Like I said, maybe they've got a fucking quarterback that can throw the ball now. He is still an underdog of sort coming from Shepherd. But I don't know. flavor of the week, I guess. People are diving in, or they just don't trust the Chargers, and that's where I lie. They're clearly more talented, but I don't know who has a better coach here. I think they're both shit. But I know Staley is shit. I literally think they could get a high school coach of some sort and at least continue on with what they're doing now. I don't know how he continues to have a job. I don't know if he's got a clause that is expensive if they get rid of him, but he's not keeping his job because he's out coaching anybody at all, especially coming from the defensive side of things. And their defense has several talents, and they are still dog shit. Again, this is the Chargers might win, but there's no way that they're blowing anybody out. Could be a late cover, but I think the Bears cover all game. I mean, I don't think they win outright, but it wouldn't shock me one bit.
Big time fade the Chargers energy. And there's a couple interesting dynamics at play in this game to me. One, you're in prime time, so this is the Sunday night game. Everybody's eyes are on you. So that's a big draw for the betting. The fact that everybody is on the Bears is fascinating to me because otherwise they have just not proved anything. So either everybody's like you and fading the Chargers, which makes sense because 8.5 is a big number to lay, or there is the possibility that this is a large reflection of what we like to call the when you have a black quarterback, don't give him a white backup conundrum, because there are teams with black quarterbacks who put a black quarterback as the backup because they want to protect their starting black quarterback and make sure that the fan base doesn't immediately clamor for the backup in the event that their starter gets hurt and then the backup comes in and, just doesn't underperform. We saw this happen to Cam Newton when he was in Carolina with an individual who probably shouldn't have been starting on an NFL team. We've seen this happen in Washington with the Commandos and Robert Griffin and Kirk Cousins. And we've seen other teams like the Ravens consistently protect Lamar Jackson in a fashion that we mentioned. And the Bears, by all indications, have let Justin Fields know that they're not interested in offering that same sort of protection to him, and thus the Tyson Bagent ascendance. And he didn't play incredibly well last week, but it was enough to beat the Raiders. And if they somehow win this game, then if I'm Justin Fields, I'm looking for my next team. It's likely not going to be Chicago. Just the way that we know that NFL fans work, and especially in Chicago, where they're quick to throw anybody out, no matter who you are, because success has just been so fleeting for them recently. But yeah, good luck, Justin Fields. I see the Bears keeping this close as well. I have no faith in the Chargers. So unless they all of a sudden just turn Herbert loose and their defense shows up very impressively at home, then this ought to be a fairly close game in the end. Prime time. Collinsworth will be out there telling you about how Tyson Bagent is the next second coming in Chicago of Jim McMahon, and there'll be lots of hyperbole to go around. So should be a fun one.
I would like to personally apologize to Mr. Bagent. I had some slanderous words last week.
Guilty.
Brian Hoyer is now the worst NFL quarterback I've seen in forever. Agent went in there like he didn't give a damn. It is the Raiders, but considering his biggest college football game maybe had 5,000 people, I'm guessing, don't quote me on that, but he played well. I got to give him and the Bears somewhat props for believing in him. So he's a slinger, I guess. The Raiders make a lot of people look good typically, but Jordan Love struggled. Russell Wilson struggled. So I don't know. Maybe he's something, I guess. Kurt Warner?
Oh, now you're just being outright rude to Justin Fields. There goes his job right there. Oh, poor Justin Fields. Tell me this. If you're Atlanta and you're Chicago, Justin Fields for Desmond Ritter, who says no?
No, Atlanta would do well with Justin Fields. Mostly connecting the dots. That's hometown. So I don't know. I don't know how good he is to begin with. He's kind of like RG3. He checks all the boxes, but when it comes down to a 5-yard check down, his brain explodes. So I don't get it. But maybe it's coaching. Maybe it's just right in his head. So
He did refer to some overthinking earlier in the year, which is never a good sign. Well, the only two we got left for the NFL slate up top of the board are the Texans at -3, which is the anonymous public line. I'm falling in love with old CJ Stroud, and obviously not a fan of the Panthers. So I think CJ makes a point here, and more importantly than what Stroud is going to try and do on an individual basis, I think the Texans defense under D'Amico Ryans is starting to take shape, and the Panthers offense is just going to turn the ball over more than a few times. So that's where I see that line going. Tell me why I am hilariously wrong.
yeah, Houston's kind of turned into everybody's darling. Playing the Ravens well, beating the brakes off the Jaguars. CJ Stroud not having a pick the first 6 weeks. They're getting a lot more love than they have in some years before the masseuse left the state there.
Shout out Brady Quinn, by the way, for the job this week. That was fucking hilarious.
A lot of percentage of the money and bets are on Houston. There's really no, which doesn't mean shit, other than the line has moved a little bit off the key number of 3, moved to 3.5.
Yeah.
Carolina at home. The biggest issue I've seen with the Carolina, and I've probably watched way too much of the Panthers I care to, is they don't really have much explosion. Bryce Young has been somewhat running for his life. It could be a little bit of his thinking he's back in college again, thinking he's faster than everybody, but there's just not a lot of offense here. That being said, everybody loving the Texans. I don't have anything on this game as of yet. What's the total here? According to scores and odds here, very interesting. 95% of the money is on the over.
Really? At 43.5 or 44?
Yeah.
Has that moved up any at all? I don't know. I just look at it at 43.5 now.
Yeah, I don't know what it opened at, but 92%, again, these are the numbers they give us. So this is what we go off of. But Yeah,
That feels like we got to hammer the fuck out of the under.
yeah. 8% of the bets, 5% of the money. Now I'm very curious what it opened at, because if it hasn't moved at all, I'll hammer the fuck out of the under. But interesting. Anyway, before I knew that would be the way I played the game. But now that I know this, might actually be the way I play the game. Another one we didn't quite touch on. This is the. Let me make sure I get my facts straight here. I believe this is the most public action. And if we didn't pay attention last week or the last 2 weeks, the most public percentage of bets, not money, went 0-8 last week. And I think the week previous was very similar. A lot of these lines are getting pretty tight, or just completely fishing for the public, but leads us to the Bengals. So they opened at 3.5. The Brock Purdy effect, if you want to say. I would doubt he plays, but Kyle Shanahan doesn't give a shit. Anybody outside of Trey Lance, he does well with his quarterbacks. I mean, he won games with fucking a bunch of no-name, what the hell, CJ Beathard made look decent in his offense. I think Sam Darnold won't skip a beat. It's not like he's only been in the system for a week. He's had all off season. He's had 8 weeks. He's not playing Belichick, so he's probably not going to see ghosts.
It is Halloween, though.
Yeah, the drop off between, and I'm not throwing shade at Purdy by any means, but the drop off between Purdy and Darnold, they're going to be able to do the same things. As long as Christian is playing, everything else is pretty replaceable. I mean, that's not a shot at Deebo Samuel either, but the offense is the offense. They just plug and play. Christian McCaffrey does make a difference, but even if in the event he didn't play, they still have backups that can run his own scheme. Cincinnati's defense is still not any good. I think this is a lot of overreaction on the Niners losing to Minnesota, which was shocking because they don't play any defense either. And I didn't watch a lot of the game. I was playing card games in Reno there, but yeah, I think this is just everybody trying to be smarter than they think they are, getting an East Coast team going west. The Niners have lost 2 in a row. I'm looking like the best team in the league. I still don't think Cincinnati is that good. I think their quarterback's good, but he hasn't played up to what we're accustomed to seeing.
All of that is fair. Counterpoints, as I am on the Bengals. Bengals coming off a bye. To San Francisco's credit, I agree that quarterbacks are relatively interchangeable out there. However, I have seen enough of Sam Darnold to know that I do not trust Sam Darnold. And if I can get Joe Burrow coming back a little bit healthier off of a bye week, even against that stout San Francisco D, which admittedly didn't look as stout against Minnesota, and Minnesota was down Justin Jefferson, only had Addison out there. So I think that Cincinnati's got a window here to cover, especially with the line being back up to +5 when, it originally dropped down to 3 once everybody thought Darnold was going to start, and then now it's back up to 5 because everybody thinks Purdy's back in play. But I think Purdy, as much as he has had success early on, and as much as it is a product of Shanahan opening things up for him through offensive scheming, teams are starting to get a little bit better at taking away the first option here for him, I think. And as he has to move around the field, not that he can't go through his progressions, but it's going to be tough, tight windows for him. And if he's not as highly successful on those as he has been in the past, then I think the Bengals can cover at a +5 line. So that's where I'm on. But more importantly, I just think Joe Burrow over either Darnold or Purdy here is a good bet, especially since Purdy be a little bit shaken. And Darnold, man, it's Sam Darnold. So that's where I line. But we can now talk about my favorite backup quarterback who is going to get the start and who I see you have jumped on here with the Gigantes of New York against the Jets Jets of New York, which, as we're all aware, is actually New Jersey for both of them. But we got the Giants +3. Tell us why our man Tyrod is going to carry it home again.
I'm a glutton for punishment, I guess. I like to bet ugly games. Like to back ugly teams for whatever reason. This is somewhat a mute point, but the Giants is a home dog, like 3.5 points. They are historically, I can't remember it's like 11-0-2 or something like that. So they technically they're both home dogs, but at the way they slate this, the Giants are the home dog. They're getting a lot of love on the bets, 66 to 34%, but the money's 50-50. The line hasn't moved at all. As you mentioned, Tyrod Taylor is the upgrade. The Giants didn't look great against the Commanders, but they are looking better. I just think it's a good opportunity to buy in on the Giants. I don't think the Jets are necessarily that great. The defenses are actually relatively comparable. I know the Jets get all the love because that's all they do is play defense, but I think Tyrod will be able to do enough. Once they've got Saquon back, they've somewhat been able to establish something. I know running against the defense is going to be difficult, but I still have little to no faith in the Jets. And that's pretty much how I line. I don't love this game, but I actually do have this one bet. So here's for hoping.
Yeah. No, I like the Tyrod adjustment for the Giants. I think it helps them be more stable on offense rather than Daniel Jones. My big reason for betting the Giants here, if I follow this, will be because I have seen way too many articles already proclaiming that Zach Wilson is looking like a different quarterback this year. And oh my God, maybe he's making some adjustments. And Aaron Rodgers is just giving him such great tutelage. And now he's going to be dipping into some ayahuasca and hanging out with even more BYU teammates' moms. And maybe he's just the right guy for the job. So immediately when they start slurping him, he's going to start slurping himself, as is his pattern. And once he loses the inkling of accountability that he really fucking needs to sit back there, shut his mouth, and run the damn offense like he should, that's just a recipe for disaster for the Jets. So I foresee some mistakes here being made by the Jets offense, putting the Jets defense into some pressure-filled scenarios, which admittedly they can handle. But I think Tyrod and Barkley are smart enough to get some windows in open space, and they're a 3-point dogs. So if the Jets do win here, I see it as a late field goal. So to me, the risk is that it's a push, but if you can get the Giants at +3, I think through the weekend, that's the way to go.
Yeah. According to some media outlets, he spent the entirety of his bye week in Utah. So he's probably freshening up on his MILF hunting skills, and who knows how focused he is on the game plan. Obviously, these are jokes. You want to see that they're professionals, but Tyrod was balls deep in the playbook, not neighbors and moms. I still don't have any trust in Zach Wilson. We've seen probably too much of him being originally from Utah, and as a favorite, you just can't really trust the Jets. I mean, they might cover a dog number, but that's usually because the script gets off script and they're able to get easy completions. But when it's actually schemed against him, he hasn't shown anything to show that he can beat a defense that actually is scheming for what they're trying to do.
Yeah. I'm with you. Well, we got one more NFL pick for the week, and that is the Colts. You wrote them down at +1. I'm seeing +2 at our local Netherlands sports book. I don't know if you can shop around and get that +2 number, but tell us why the Minshew mania will rise above the New Orleans Jazz.
Yeah, the way I see this game, for whatever reason, people still think New Orleans is good and Derek Carr is worth a damn, but fuck, he might be right up there with Brian Hoyer on shitty ass quarterbacks. He
to fuck the under last week, but yeah.
The throws he makes, and then he's kind of called out his teammates quite a bit. I don't think Dennis Allen is a great head coach at all. They do play defense. One quarterback's making about $40 million more than the other one, but statistically, you can do and I'm not looking at the statistics, but the eye test, they're the same fucking people. One just is exciting. The other, I don't know, is an emo wearing fucking eyeliner and throws up shitty balls and then blames everybody else for him making shitty throws. Looking at
that Carr wears eyeliner.
Probably fucking permanently tattooed. I don't know what the hell he does, but it's taken me probably way too long to fully acknowledge that he is not. I mean, maybe a top 20 quarterback, and that's being number 20. There's not too many people that are worse than him. It's a little biased, I guess, but 36% of the bets are on the Colts, but almost 70% of the money are on the Colts. So
that's usually an indication of a sharp lean towards the lower percentage of bets, right?
Yeah, I mean,
because you get bigger bets, bigger money.
Yeah, so the defense is better, but the Colts defense hasn't played terrible. I've heard Jonathan Taylor is going to get a little more involved, but Zach Moss has been more than relevant.
Yeah.
Honestly, this is probably, I don't want to assume anything, but people thinking they don't have a starting quarterback They're going to back the defense that they just saw. But, I mean, Minshew, probably not over the course of 18 weeks, but he's more than serviceable as a quarterback. Yeah, it's obviously essentially a pick 'em, but I think the Colts win outright. Nothing's easy, but I would say for most of the game, they probably cover as well. The Saints continue to suck at offense. I mean, their defense is the only reason they're even in half of these games. And then kind of what we mentioned with Zach Wilson, the only time Derek Carr gets any of his numbers are when the team's like, oh, okay, or you're down 10, 5 to go. Yeah, go ahead, have a 70-yard drive that takes 6 minutes. I mean, he is not impressive at all.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the AC injury and the shoulder definitely hurting him, getting the ball downfield. Olave just not being utilized as he should, which means that if they can't go deep, that's not opening things up for Michael Thomas underneath either, which is really where he's going to be effective, if at all, in this stage of his career. They're throwing the ball to Kamara and handing the ball off to Kamara, I think, way too much relative to what they need to do on offense. And, that might seem counterintuitive because he may be their best offensive player, but at the same time, he has a lot of miles on him from those Sean Payton and Drew Brees days. So I struggle to think that that's their best option moving forward. And I agree that Minshew is more than serviceable as an NFL quarterback. He's at home where he tends to perform a little bit better. And if the defense can be slightly successful against New Orleans, which I think they will, then Jonathan Taylor coming back, having more games under his belt, only going to help the Colts. I think that the two-headed attack that they have with Taylor and Moss really helps them, helps Minshew as well, keep the easy throws on the docket for him. So Moss may have some injury trouble in this one, but again, if you're forced to rely on Jonathan Taylor only, that's never a bad thing historically when he's healthy. So I like the Colts here, and that will wrap up our NFL section. And now we are on to what has become, since last week I blew the NFL completely, my favorite portion of the show, the college football lightning round. And we will start in the local home of game day this week with both of us here writing down Oregon laying the 6.5 against my beloved Utah Utes, who unfortunately, I saw Kyle Whittingham riding into McAfee's show on that fucking Harley. And as jacked as Whittingham looks in that sleeveless shirt showing up on the Harley, making McAfee look like the goddamn punter that he is, that is clear indication to me that Utah is loving itself a little too much right now after that win against SC. And I think that Oregon is just a wildly different opponent here than SC in terms of physicality in the trenches. And that's going to mean that old Bryson Barnes is not going to have the same kind of success that he had against Oregon that he showed against USC, which is largely underperforming in the trenches. So that's where I line, or that's why I ended up on the Ducks. But tell me more about some real reasoning why we shouldn't be taking the Utes here at home.
You're telling me you don't have any faith in double knee braces playing this week?
Honestly, I was looking at the schedule, and I think this is the game where Rising can come back and still maintain the medical red shirt. So I do have concerns about that, and I think you have to watch up until kickoff, watch. And the key thing here, if you're going to bet this game and you want to know, because Whittingham's not obligated to say shit because it's college football and they don't have injury reports, local radio, ESPN 700, they have a webcast. They'll do an interview with Whittingham prior to pregame, And that is where you will find out if Rising is going to play first, most likely. Otherwise, you're going to be watching them about to kick off, and Brock Heward or whoever the fuck it is for ESPN is going to be telling you, oh, by the way, Cam Rising is going to start. And then you're really going to be nervous about this game. So keep an eye on it, fellas.
Oh, hell, they get out Alex Smith, and I could give a shit less. This game is, for the numbers' sake, I do hope Rising plays, because I will have a large buyback on Oregon. Again, I do have this game. For you guys that are not watching Utah consistently, this is what they do. They beat USC, they shit the bed. They just happen to play Oregon this week. They could be playing Arizona this week and would get their ass beat. Obviously, game day wouldn't be there, but Oregon's got the better quarterback. They got the better offensive line. They got the better defensive line. They got more talent. I don't give a shit that it is in the MUS, which is Utah's student section, and typically it's difficult to play in Utah. Oregon doesn't give a shit. This game, I'm glad the line's not this, but I would even back it up to 17.5. I mean, there's nothing to state that, but betting Utah so consistently, I just know how they play. They play up the competition when they need to. They play down. I know Oregon's playing up, or they have to play up to Oregon, but it's not going to happen. They looked really good against USC, but as we've mentioned several times, USC has a lot of blemishes. Outside of Caleb Williams, they've got a talented receiver as well, but their defense sucks. Oregon's not that team. Oregon's got a defense that I know they gave up 100 to Washington, but Utah's not Washington. Utah.
Well, they didn't give up 100. It was 27-24, right? I mean, Washington's a really good offense. So I feel like that's a reasonable outcome for the Ducks. And if you're telling me that you put Washington's offense against Utah's offense side by side, I mean, Utah's going to get 10 points in that scenario?
Yeah, Utah traditionally runs the ball well. They play defense. Sometimes their special teams is better. As one of our colleagues said, they're either going to win outright or they're going to lose by 40. And I don't see them winning at all. Oregon is just going to play Utah football better and beat the brakes off of them. They're going to fucking punch them in the mouth. And that's essentially my assessment of the game. They're just too good in the trenches, and they have weapons outside. Bo Nix has got rid of his can't win on the road, kind of, from his SEC days, but fuck, they could hand the ball off and still cover the number. I have zero faith in long-winded assessment. The big guys up front are going to dominate for Oregon, both sides of the ball.
You're here. And now, North Carolina State, you got them at plus 10. I'm trying to find them on the slate here. There we go. Looks like it's at 9.5 if you're in the Netherlands. And they're going up against the Clemson Tigers. North Carolina State's at home. You know me. I fucking hate Dabo. So anytime that we get the opportunity to bet against him, I'm in favor of merely on religious principle, to quote Dabo Sweeney. So let's hear more about North Carolina State.
Yeah, the shine of Dabo is gone away pretty quick, and that might be because he lost one of the best quarterbacks in college football for probably since Andrew Luck. Makes your coaching come out sunshine. Trevor Lawrence, and having the ability to probably illegally pay some of these defensive linemen and all the other talent they had makes you a little better. The fact that everybody now have, you got Miami, better location, all these other places, better locations. This is why he's so against the NIL. It's because he was illegally, I'm quoting, there's no factual evidence to this, but all the people that used to go to Clemson don't go to Clemson anymore. Klubnik was supposed to be the second coming. He is terrible. This is a fate of Clemson. I don't think they're anywhere near what they used to be. I mean, obviously they still have top tier-ish recruits, but NC State, they don't have a quarterback. This is a pure play on the numbers and fading Clemson. I don't think Clemson's anybody in a relative conversation of Clemson. I don't think they're 10 points better than anybody. It opened at 10. It's now at 9.5. Total hasn't moved off. I think a lot of people probably feel the same way of Dabo. And he's just such a likable person that you want to back him because last week after he lost, threw every one of them under the bus. So he's tough to coach with an iron fist when people can just leave you or make money elsewhere. And then you look pretty average. His defense, there hasn't been anything since Venables left. Clemson's going back to old Clemson when they had C.J. Spiller and Deshaun Watson. They were exciting, but they wouldn't win games. Clemson's just not exciting anymore. They just don't win games. I know they're 4-3, but without looking at their schedule, I know they haven't beat anybody worth a damn in probably a couple years. This is because I hate Clemson. NC State's good enough to make a game of it. I don't think they win outright or anything. I don't think Clemson can separate.
Yeah. I hear you. On to my favorite team, the Golden Domers up in Pittsburgh, laying a big number, 20.5. But I get the feeling that you don't think that Notre Dame defense is going to give up many points here.
Yeah, it's better defense, better quarterback. I still believe in their coach. I would say they're better coached, even though he's looked situationally poor at some points, but there's not much to like about Pittsburgh. The number opened at 17.5. Obviously, we're getting the worst part of it. It's now 20.5. I don't see Pittsburgh doing much. They're not Pittsburgh of a couple years ago to where they can play tough teams. I hate laying big numbers. Obviously, I think the last time I laid a big number like this was TCU versus Colorado, and that didn't turn out well. But yeah, I don't see Pittsburgh being able to muster much. I mean, the line moved 3 points. The total's actually dropped. So if you piece it together, that's saying the differential between the two teams, scoring wise, doesn't really matter as far as Pittsburgh getting the extra 3 points. It's, clearly you'd rather have the 17, but I wouldn't be surprised if it got up to 21.5 by kick this morning.
Well, go Golden Domers. I'll be watching that game as much as I can. Next, we have the USC Cal game. That is a game where you are on the under It is at 66.5. Actually, yeah, 66.5 for some books. I got it at 67 in the Netherlands. And tell us why you think that this won't hit that big old number.
Yeah, so it opened at 68.5.
Mm.
Excuse me. Again, you like to get the better number, obviously, for the listeners here, but statistically, should have wrote this down, but USC with a total of over 65. So essentially anything over 65, it does trend towards the under. Anything 65 and less trends to the over. I don't think a lot of people are able to watch Cal because the only reason I'm glad the Pac-12 is going away is because some of the best games you can't watch, or you can't watch the other part of the conference. But California is not bad. I would actually back the 10 as well. I think it's up
Interesting. I was going to ask about that because it seems so low. But
Yeah.
again, I haven't seen Cal play.
I think it was. So it opened at 7. Last night it got to 10.5. I'm looking right now. It's at 10. This is a buyback, clearly. USC is just flashy. Everybody, if you're just a casual watcher, you'll see, 10 points. It's easy. They score a lot of points. But Cal actually plays really good defense. They're not a juggernaut by any means, but they're not poor. And USC, they're all flash and no style. And you can argue that after getting beat down that they're going to come out motivated, but they're still college kids. USC, they're going to get up for Notre Dame. They're going to get up for these other games. When you go to play Cal in Berkeley, how excited are you going to be? Midday kick. I couldn't tell you one person on Cal. This is clearly just playing the numbers against USC.
Yeah.
I don't think they're going to separate at all. Like I said, I equally like the 10.5, 10 as much as I do the under for those reasons.
Yeah, no, I hear you on the under for sure. I think USC made USC made Utah's offense look good, which is fucking hard to do. So I think Cal, if they can get a few stops, they can keep this close. Definitely put up a few points to hang with them, especially if they can keep it in the low 30s or whoever wins in the low 30s and get into the 20s there. So good pick there. Fresno, looks like you got Fresno State minus 8.5.
Yeah.
Where are my Bulldogs this week?
Yeah, before I get into that game, I've got another game that I didn't write down. So Boise State versus Wyoming. I love betting Wyoming. But Boise State coming off a loss, which they lost last week. They're 9-0 against the number, 9-0 straight up. They do have a talented quarterback. Like I said, I love backing Wyoming. They're boring, and they always play within the number. But I think this is a good spot for Boise State to actually cover. It's 5 now, but it was 4 last night, so there's a little bit of movement there. But going to Fresno, I think that's a late game. Yeah, so they're playing.
They're at UNLV. They're at home, but it's UNLV.
Yeah. I just think it's a good spot. UNLV is getting a little bit of love. They're not UNLV of old, where they were just an automatic loss. I think Fresno just has the better quarterback. I don't love the number, but I don't see UNLV being able to stay close. The similar as the Notre Dame game, the line has moved up, the total has moved down. That just tells me they're not expecting too much from Vegas. That's kind of the play. And then I also had the over on
UCF.
Yeah, trying to. It's the problem with all these college kids or so many fucking games, but
so many games.
Where's that? The over is what, 50, 58 and a half, something like that.
I think so, yeah.
Just the majority of it is just the style play. UCF plays. They doesn't matter the opponent. The way that they play forces the opponent to score as well. But then it's more possessions. The more you can get more possessions, the more you need stops or more opportunities to score.
West Virginia is the opponent, by the way.
Yeah, and Holgrimson, he is the line's moved point to the under, but both these styles mirror each other, similar. They're a little different, but they're both still air raid. They're from that model. So again, as I mentioned, UCF, they keep their foot on the pedal, which forces the opponent to do the same, especially if they can get out early. Kind of changes the game script where maybe there's 3-4 extra possessions just because of the way that they play. The more possessions you get, as I mentioned, that puts more pressure on your defense to get stops, but it also allows more opportunity for scoring.
Yeah. All right. Another 2-for-1. Let's hit the Pac-12 again. So you got UCLA, Colorado, under 61.5. And then Washington, we think they're going to be in a barn burner down in Tucson, over 60.5. I get the feeling that I know that UCLA, the under, is because we think Colorado's offense is largely inflated, and they're likely not to keep up their high side of the bargain against UCLA's D. And the Washington over, I personally like, because I actually think that old Wild Kitties +3 might not be a terrible pick. They play tough at home, late night, under the lights. Bearcats. No, Wildcats. Wrong cats.
To touch on UCLA, yes, I think it's the Dion effect. But UCLA is not overly explosive. They play pretty good defense. Colorado's the other side of things. They don't play any defense at all. They still haven't stopped a slant. You hit it right on the head. This is more of when they come up with these numbers. This is just a brief summary. They're putting a collection of all this together. They do their average. They come out. They compare the opponents, come up with a line, but a lot of it is to get the bets. I don't think anybody's ever bet an under Colorado because they are exciting from the media, but they're pretty fraudulent. I mean, I know they were a one-win team last year, but that team doesn't exist anymore. They got rid of 60 of the people. So, yes, this is a public play. That's why I've got the under. It could be a 40-20 game. It could be Yeah, I no faith in Colorado. Hopefully they play a little bit of defense, but they're just even at 61.5 feels like regular Joe Blows would see it and say, "Oh yeah, Colorado they score a lot and they don't play defense," so they would take the over. Obviously, I'm thinking the opposite, that there's going to be a little bit of defense played. And then the Washington game.
Real quick correction on the Washington game. I fucked that up. They are not on the road in Tucson. They are on the road in Palo Alto against Stanford. So rehash that.
Stanford does have a football program, if you didn't know, before the 29-point comeback.
I don't think any of their students know.
Yeah. This is a buy on Washington scoring. It was a really late game, but I know I watched the damn thing. I think they scored a touchdown, maybe two. And this is a high-powered offense. This is, they're going to get their shit together.
Yeah.
I mean, I think they could put up 40 themselves.
As Desmond Howard said, that big Phoenix energy.
Yeah. National championship hopes, Heisman hopes. When you lay the bed or shit the bed like they did last week, I would look for explosive plays. Stanford, I think they do just enough. I refuse to lay this big of a number, but I would also say this is a decent buy opportunity of Stanford. They played, everybody saw it. They came back from 29. Everybody probably thinks highly of them. And Washington, if you watched it, they looked relatively poor, but they were coming off the Oregon game. It was a letdown spot.
Yeah.
To wrap it up, the reason I took the over, like I mentioned, I think the offense gets clicking. They want them back to the Heisman. And I think Stanford can score 20. So I like I said, I think Washington themselves, I don't know what their
total.
Their individual total is, but I would take the over on that too. I think they get the 45 relatively easy, and then it's just hoping Stanford can muster a couple drives together.
Yeah. It makes sense. Like the Huskies in this spot. And now let's move to the conference where the Pac-12 is going to also move. The ACC. And we got Georgia Tech plus 11.5. Who are the Techies going up against?
North Carolina, my nemesis.
Ooh, our boy Drake May.
Yeah.
Tell me about this.
Yeah. To that, they should just get rid of fucking conferences. How can you have a West Coast team in an Atlantic Coast conference and make any sense at all? That's for another topic, but
there are clearly much dumber people than us responsible for how college football works, which is sad because we're not like the most brilliant people in the world.
Yeah, the only reason, get on a tangent here, but the only reason it makes any sense is basketball and I guess baseball. Makes no sense for football. One, the conference itself for football isn't that great, but basketball and baseball, I guess they can, but they don't. Neither one of those programs make nearly the amount of money football makes. But
yeah,
anyway, I just think 11.5 is too much. North Carolina this year, I haven't quite capped them great. When I bet against them, they look like gangbusters. When I bet for them, they look poor. They still don't play any defense. They have the better quarterback. Everything about them is better. But Georgia Tech isn't triple option of years past.
That's good to know. I had no idea. I was going to ask if they still run that.
Yeah, they've moved from triple option or wing T traditionally to more of a spread option / air raid, just like anybody else. Total's moving up. The line hasn't moved, which tells me, right or wrong, that they think it's just going to be back and forth, which if you have multiple possession points, typically good when you go back and forth. And when you have, for example, like if the line dropped, I wouldn't find as much value in the 11.5 as where the line's moving up that, they're going to change possessions. Another addition to that, usually when college football is a little different, but if the line's big, that's when the number can change a little bit. So if it was, talk a little NFL, the line's 40, the spread's 2.5. That 2.5 is a lot more valuable, where if it's 45 and you're getting 3.5, you're getting the key number, but the assumed point value, changes a little bit because they expect more possessions, more points. College football is similar, just with bigger numbers because they don't play any defense. But this is just the numbers buy. I think Georgia Tech does enough. It wouldn't shock me if they went outright at plus 340. I'm not playing that, but I think they're either lose late or just the script gets close enough that the 11.5 turns into a single possession to cover. Long-winded assumption there, or evaluation, I guess.
Yep, makes sense. I have my own doubts about North Carolina as well, so we'll see how that shakes out. Sticking in the ACC, as we said, we got Miami, the Hurricanes, against the Virginia Cavaliers. My favorite disappointing program, UVA. And we see you are on the under 47.5 here. Tell me that's probably because UVA is so disappointing.
Pretty much hit it right on the head. I don't want to say Miami's back by any means, but
Good, because they're not.
I don't know. They play down to their competition far too much. But like you said, I don't even know if Virginia knows they have a football program. They're just your boy Robert and I. Bless his heart, he's not a great. Actually, I don't even know if he's at Virginia anymore. I think he's at NC State. But God, it's been years since Virginia can do anything. I think this game gets ugly early and then run out of time. It opened at 49.5. It's now at 47.5. Don't see a buyback coming. There's zero to believe in Virginia at all. What's the total?
Yeah, it's at 18.5 now.
Yeah, 72% of the bets on the over. So essentially 44% of the money is holding or making the line move. It's not a huge discrepancy, but I mean,
shows you the trend,
yeah.
though.
Yeah, 56% of the money and 72% of the bets, and it's moving in the opposite direction. So
Yeah.
clearly,
Somebody knows something.
yeah. Which trends don't mean shit, but it's always a good uh, kind of assessment. Yes.
Yeah.
I guess to close it out, the other one for you, Commander loving backers, don't do it. They're it's at seven, and they're getting 75% of the money, and it hasn't moved. I wouldn't be surprised if it got to 7.5. I think one of the reasons it hasn't is because they've actually played them well. The Eagles coming off a primetime win against the team that everybody thinks is a Super Bowl contender. It's possible. It's still the NFL. I don't see too much of a letdown, but I sure as hell wouldn't back the Commanders. I think this game gets pretty ugly. I think they finally came back to earth in being shitty, but they're not going to be shitty enough to get a quarterback. They'll be good enough. They'll probably split one with Dallas. They've already, I don't know. But that's one of the games that stuck out to me that I didn't talk about, the money difference.
Oh, sure. AKA the fucking reverse jinx alert. I see. I see what we did there. I see. Yeah. Kind of like when you convinced me to pick the fucking Falcons to beat them. Yeah, I see that.
Well,
Dick.
I picked the Falcons too. So I guess
You're willing to lose that money for the Commandos.
yeah, is I think Cowherd once said if you bet against your team and they win, at least you get a win. But can't do both. Can't bet on them and lose, then get a double loss going on.
Speaking of, gotta.
Yeah.
For anybody who doesn't know, that's the Gator Chomp plus 14.5 down in the largest outdoor cocktail party in the world in Jacksonville this week. Gators gonna hang on. I think they keep it close, even though I don't like their quarterback. And speaking of their quarterback and where he used to hail from, Badgers surprising Ohio State. Ohio State coming off a big win against Penn State. They're going to have a little bit of a letdown. They're up in the land of the cheese, up in Madison. It's a little bit too liberal for those Columbus types up there. They're going to be feeling out of sorts. I like the Badgers there, keeping it close. And last one, we got some family that hails from the land of the Wildcats, as I mentioned before, in the late night cap on the Pac 12. You likely won't see this game if you're on the East Coast, but you should. U of A against Oregon State, going to be a good one. And I like the Wild Kitties +3. So
Yeah.
tell me why I'm crazy.
For the last one you mentioned, there's been actually some movement towards the Kitties there. I don't hate it. I think Arizona's pretty good. I think Oregon State's good, but
Both good teams, I think.
Oregon State is definitely different away from home. A lot of which this is where it's different. A lot of bets, a lot of money, pushing the line in your way. It's 66 and 70% of the money on Arizona. This could be just because, like I said, 5.5 is probably too much, which is why I came back. We'll see if there's a buyback. Florida game, I don't hate that at all. I didn't back him because I don't trust fucking Florida at all. But Georgia with Bowers isn't great. They've got some dudes. It's going to be rivalry. Um,
Big time. As I said,
yeah,
largest. The game is called the largest outdoor cocktail party in the world.
yeah. It's
If there's ever a college football game that you wanted to attend as a fan, just of college football in general, I got to think this is up on the list of the top 5. Like Red River,
yeah.
cocktail party, Ohio State, Michigan. Like these are just giant ass games that you want to go to.
Yeah. College football's so weird this year. I mean, years past, who's going to be in the national championship. This year, I don't think you really can say that. I mean, when Michigan's being talked about the best team, I mean, there's typically issues because they always shit the bed. But I don't, I don't know if Georgia's. I don't know if they're 14 and a half points better than most teams in the SEC, let alone a rivalry game. Um, without arguably their best player. I I don't hate it. They said it opened at 20, but that had to be like a couple weeks ago. There's no way it was.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's like a glitch.
yeah,
That was way before Bowers was out.
yeah. And then Ohio State's kind of been clicking. They're kind of still don't trust their quarterback worth a damn. I do. Wisconsin's got so many backs, it doesn't really matter. But I think they're Braylon Allen, who's 6'3", 240. I think he's out, but I don't think that matters. I think Fickle's a good enough coach to stay within the number. They still play really good defense. I don't have a play on any of these three, but I don't think they're terrible by any means. Mostly, as I'm sure you thought of, can't trust Ohio State. They're typically a public team, big number. I don't know if they can separate. They've got the guys to separate. If for whatever reason the team just doesn't seem to separate, like the Maryland game, some of these other games that they played, they just play closer. Wisconsin plays good enough defense, and then same thing with Georgia. They haven't shown the ability to separate as well. So
There we go.
yeah.
Well, that should take us to the end, folks. He is Zesty. This is Zesty's Best Bets. And I am the anonymous betting public. Signing off for week 8. Everybody go enjoy those games. We will see you next week, hopefully with some more dollars in hand.
Later.